Welcome back, everybody, to Pull Hook Golf, the podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cook, and today we have a fascinating episode for you. Joining us is a visionary in the sports world development, product innovation, and golf disruption. Ted Simons here. And man, Ted's resume is extensive, folks. Began his journey in retail sporting goods for Rossignol in ski and tennis, and then evolved into a leader in video and film production. He then founded Synergy Group Marketing, where he's led iconic sports projects for clients like Wilson Sporting Goods, US Ski Team, Yonex Golf, if you remember Yonex, everybody, Proform Fitness, and Nicklaus Academies. But I do want to give a brief overview for what you're going to be listening into today with Ted. We're going to dive deep into Ted's background. We're going to get his experience with international sports initiatives. And then, of course, we've got to talk a little bit about LIV Golf and PGA Tour, the rivalry there, and where he thinks the golf industry is headed. Welcome to the show, Ted.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me, Matt. Looking forward to it.
It's my pleasure. We had a great conversation. You actually were reaching out to me around a couple people that you work with that you want to have on the show. And the more that we got talking, I'm like, you know what? I absolutely have to have you on an episode because you have so much insight. And what's awesome is you've worked a lot internationally, which I don't think I talk to enough people in the golf industry that have that experience. And that's where it's going to lead us into the LIV Golf side of things. But first off, I want to get into your background, your approach. Now, you've had such a varied career. And from sports products to film production and now golf development, can you walk us through how your career evolved and what led to where you're at today?
I wish I had a roadmap to be able to show you and share all this with you. But I just moved and shaped and went where my career took me, where my relationships took me. So yeah, I started in retail sporting goods. I was a baseball player, but once I got there, my goal, my vision was to become a ski rep. That's all I wanted to do. These guys and gals, they were my idols. They were the pinnacle of, if I got to that, I was done. And sure enough, I was able to get there. And oddly enough, at the ripe age of 34, I decided I didn't want to be an old rep. Maybe, standing on the plaza at Snowbird, freezing my butt off, taught me that maybe there's a different path here. And so, yeah, I left the repping, got into video production world, focused on sports and resorts, and figured out that, I was unemployable, if you will. I don't really fit into corporate structure. So I was given the opportunity to start my own company, and that's when I founded Synergy Group Marketing. And from there, I just continued to evolve. I started writing video scripts because I couldn't find producers that understood what I wanted from a product information piece for Yonex Golf or Yonex Tennis, Wilson Sporting Goods, those type of things. So I started to write scripts, started to produce, started to shoot my own video because I knew what I wanted to see, and that was just a great company that I built, and everything just kind of evolved. I got more into fitness. Fitness manufacturers, that led me to NASM, that led me down other paths, other technologies, and eventually I got introduced to the group that was running Nicklaus Academies. And after a period of consulting with them, they brought me on board as an executive VP and COO, and I had the opportunity, the privilege of representing Mr. Nicklaus around the world for 18 years.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, obviously, you love working with products as well as projects around these. Can you share some examples for the audience of how getting into the details made a difference into a project success?
Yeah, I'm weird because I don't understand manufacturing. I'm certainly not an engineer, but little things like going to the factories and seeing how they lay up Rossignol skis, which has changed now, but seeing how they laid things, so you understood all the components that went into making a product perform. One of my more interesting ones is we went and filmed how you make Wilson tennis balls, which was, I think I can still smell the factory, the resins. I may still have some of the felt, somewhere in my DNA. But getting into and watching the people doing the work, and their care, their precision, to come out, to at the end of the production, see that they wanted that Wilson tennis ball to be the best ball on the market. From there, now it's easy to produce a video about it because you can share the passion, you can share their attention to detail, their commitment to the brand. And when I got those opportunities to see how things get made, how the engineers design things, it made it really, really easy to produce their marketing pieces, their product information pieces that I became passionate about. I love my clients. I love their projects. So
I got to go back to Mr. Nicklaus's brand because obviously we're on a golf podcast. I want to find out, working with the Golden Bear and so forth. But before we do, now, within working with Mr. Nicklaus, you worked a lot internationally, right? So you worked in Brazil, I believe, India and China. What was it like working in those markets, and how did you kind of ensure that those projects succeeded within that international brand?
Well, I mean, it goes back to almost the manufacturing. I visited, I think I counted 54 countries to establish 28 locations. So I woke up and I'm on the coast of Croatia, going where the hell am I? I'm on the Mediterranean somewhere. So being able to travel internationally, and I traveled alone. Me and my carry-on bag and my backpack with a laptop and a cell phone, and just hope that I got picked up by the person that I was trying to communicate with. But having the Golden Bear, as on your business card, I mean, talk about opening doors. That was the first step, but really getting to know the people, getting to know the projects, the lay of the land, walking the earth, if you will, to make sure that who you're dealing with, the projects you're looking at, what the market potential is, added to Mr. Nicklaus's bucket, right, and did not take away from his brand. And so, that's it's a tremendous responsibility that I took obviously very seriously, and I passed that on to my eventual clients that I negotiated 20-year agreements with. You're talking about a long-term marriage here, so you've got to make sure that you've got the right people that are funding the project, that are going to be behind the project for the long haul, and then working with them to design, to develop, to create that experience, and hiring people that didn't work for me, that didn't work for the client. Every day they put that shirt on, that hat on, they represented Mr. Nicklaus. And
how was working with Jack, by the way? I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're enticing me here with talking about all of this. I'm like, how was the Golden Bear?
Well, the Golden Bear is like every one of us. We all have good days and we have bad days. And I was told by Jack early on that you don't want a phone call from me. that means I've maybe made a mistake somewhere. So as long as he put the trust in our organization to represent his brand, and I would report in, I would see Jack. I would fly into Florida and see him in the office from time to time. I would have the luxury of kind of melding design projects with an academy project, to being able to be on the ground with Jack and really show off what we were doing in his name. And that part of it was very gratifying, because if you think about the brand, the academies were the only thing that touched the customer. You can have 400 golf courses around the world. You could have ice cream. You can have shirts. You could have golf clubs. But at the end of the day, the only person touching the golfer is the golf instructor.
That's a good point.
So we took that, as our responsibility, our mantra, as, I think it's an overused term now, but, growing the game in these development countries where golf is, not what it is in America, not what it is in the UK or Scotland. Knowing that you're going in and putting an academy in Guam, or Jakarta, or Qingdao, of all places. I mean, even outside of Sao Paulo, world-class golf instruction in many of these markets never existed. And when you come in with a brand like Nicklaus and the facilities that we were able to design and have built and outfitted, and bring in the expat pros to teach Jack's philosophy, and again, represent Mr. Nicklaus. God, I mean, what a blast.
A lot of fun, but I got to imagine there's some complexity there, right? Not working in the United States and bringing these new academies to these different markets. What are some glaring differences between kind of setting something up here domestically versus going international like that?
Well, when we would design coaching studios, we would provide the architects and the engineers with our specifications. And you would constantly be on the phone or email, ensuring that these specifications were being adhered to and being guaranteed. No problem. Don't worry, Mr. Simons. Don't worry, Mr. Simons. We've got it. And Qingdao is a perfect example. Fly in to back in those days, install the equipment, put in the high-speed cameras and the pressure mat and the launch monitors and the computers. And instead of having a 3-inch conduit, you had a 1.5-inch conduit. You can't feed cables through that size conduit. And just looking at them going, you have to tear out the concrete. We have to tear out the walls. We have to start over again. And
that's got to be a tough conversation.
It's a tough conversation, because sometimes there are language differences. My Chinese is not very good. My Korean is not very good. I figured out early on, don't try. All you're going to do is butcher and offend. So make sure you have a translator wherever you go. But yeah, tough conversation to say, we've got to start over again.
Imagine being the interpreter. You're telling them what to say, and then they got to relay the tough message.
They've got to relay the tough message, and you have to keep that, that face on, if you will, and that's what they call it, saving face in Asia. You have to maintain your confidence and not look like a jerk. While ensuring that they understand in a polite way they made a mistake, and it's not my fault, it's your expense, and I guess I will be back in 2 weeks and we'll start over again. So jump on a plane and come back to the States and do it all over again.
That's incredible. Tell me a little bit. So moving beyond the Nicklaus brand, what are some recent projects that you've been working on?
Yeah, we've been, and I'm not at liberty to announce, but we have I was contracted to put together a branded academy in Vietnam. Yeah. So, okay, they give me a list of top 10 names that are recognizable to them. Um, and my job is to go out and negotiate with a high level, well known instructor that has the interest in expanding their brand in Vietnam. Interesting enough, I just got off the phone before we got on, and in talks in India, um, looking at how you can put together golf projects to introduce the game to more and more people, because in India, land is very difficult to put together. Literally every citizen in India, I swear, owns a piece of land, and getting 30 or 40 or 50 landowners to agree to or more to put together a golf course is almost impossible, which is why growing golf course development is tough in India, not to mention water. So that's where, how do you put together innovative driving ranges? How do you put together short courses? It could be 3 holes, it could be 6 holes, it could be 12 holes, it could be 9. It doesn't matter. How do you assemble enough land and bring together a creative golf experience? Because at the end of the day, I'm all about what is the experience? What is the customer's experience? What is the golfer's experience? And whether it's a Nicklaus brand or somebody else's brand or nobody's brand, what is your experience? That's why you come back a second time, a third time, a fourth time. Great marketing, great design will get you there once. But if your experience is crappy, why would you come back and spend your time and spend your money? And I think that's where a lot of projects, not just golf, but a lot of projects fall short, is they don't look at the end consumer. Who are we designing for? And if we can't achieve that, we've wasted a whole lot of time and money to build the Taj Mahal that nobody wants.
That's really interesting. And just that dynamic that you just mentioned. And it sounds like, I mean, especially bringing golf courses over to, let's say, India, sounds not only complicated and complex, but at the same time, like it's kind of a disruptor within that market. So now we got to dive into the hot topic, which is LIV Golf. I mean, it has been and we're just going to get right into it because really, working with disruptors and bringing to new markets and so forth. How do you think LIV Golf is, or how do you see them as a disruptor in the market? And ultimately, do you think it's good for the game?
Well, I think in the traditional sense, especially with the PGA Tour, for sure, LIV is a disruptor. If you go to Bangkok, Thailand, to a LIV event, you're not disrupting anything. You're bringing the best players in the world to your country. They don't care if it's 54 holes, a shotgun, music, whatever. They're having the opportunity that the PGA Tour would never give them by traveling to traveling to Thailand, or bringing a major tour with big stars back to Australia. So, yes, are they going to Chicago? Are big crowds going to show up? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Not everybody is into their model and their presentation, but outside of this protected borders of the United States, LIV is making a difference in exposing the game of golf. Is it growing it? I don't know. That's up to I guess people like me and others that are developing projects that reach the masses, but they're exposing the game of golf. And to show up and see John Rahm, to see Phil Mickelson. Hell, I mean, if I was in Thailand, I would buy a ticket and go see it, right? Because you would not ever have that opportunity. So for that reason, sure, it's exposing masses, millions and millions of people to the game of golf.
I think you raise a really good point with the international aspect, because outside of the United States, I mean, we get so often, and this was kind of awakening for me as well as I say this, around the fact that, especially when I started interacting on Twitter or X, and all of a sudden you start getting these international opinions and you start to see kind of how, a lot of people are against the PGA Tour from international areas, and it tends to be Australia, tends to be the UK a little bit, and it's really interesting to have this dynamic to where people within the United States, a lot of them are pro PGA Tour and don't want LIV. Now, granted, there's certainly people within the United States that like LIV Golf and so forth. I've always been a neutral party around it, because I just don't take the politics as a part of the argument. And if you remove that, you just focus in on the golfers, then you tend to have more of a neutral opinion towards LIV Golf in particular. But again, going back to the international aspect and how it's exposing the game and it's bringing the game to these different areas internationally and becoming a little bit of a global tour. But do you think that with it being more on the global aspect, and them talking about this and bringing these players over and exposing them to these new areas, that it should have more of an international focus than even what it has today, where still we've got multiple tournaments throughout the year being taken place here in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, you have LIV has to make a mark in the States to be whatever successful is to them. Right. I mean, you have to have the number one media market. You have to have that exposure, or I'm not so sure the ultimate business model works, whatever that may be. But, not only do you see, like the excitement of LIV tournaments coming to these countries and these areas, you also, these players that are on LIV that are no longer able to play PGA Tour events, they can play DP Tour events to get their world points so they can qualify for majors. And so all of a sudden you've got, again, world-class players that are playing Asian Tour events, whoever's sanctioning whatever to get points. Now you've got the Abraham Answers of the world playing events that you never would have seen before. So the downstream positive effect of LIV, is I think is also being underappreciated by, and God bless their souls, these players. Yes, they signed on. They knew what they were signing for. They certainly cashed the checks. But they're still, they're out there chasing their world ranking points to get into majors, and knock on wood, one of these days, allowed to play Ryder Cup.
That certainly would be interesting. I know a lot of people have talked about, we'd love to see a Ryder Cup set up between LIV players and PGA Tour players. So there's that aspect too, that maybe some point down the road, we get something a little bit like that. But just to have somebody, and I know Keegan Bradley, as the captain of the U.S. Ryder Cup team for 2025, said, I want the best players in the world. I don't want it just to be PGA Tour players. So it sounds like that opens up the door once again to a Brooks Koepka, to ultimately a Bryson DeChambeau potentially. So that'll be interesting to see how that dynamic all takes place. But you did raise a good point around the DP World Tour and how, players that you normally wouldn't see playing in those events are starting to play in those events because they need official World Golf Rankings. I don't want to go so far into the weeds with the official World Golf Rankings, because we could have an hour-long conversation just around that alone. but it's kind of a cause and effect to where, they aren't getting the official world golf ranking points from the LIV Golf circuit. And now they're going to have to chase those points and continue to get those through the DP World Tour. So ultimately, do you think it's been a positive for the DP World Tour?
I think LIV, well, yes and no, because there's some that that were they're European tour players. It's called DP
Exactly.
World Tour. The Lee Westwoods and the Sergios of the world that got banished unless they paid, a fine to come back. Could they afford it? Yes. On principle, it's really, guys. But, so I don't think that, certainly that did not help the DP World Tour because they lost some real mainstays, the Lee Westwoods of the world. In the UK and in Europe, and Sergio, they were that tour. So it hurt in that aspect, but you're right. Being able to see those that, that want to qualify through the majors by the points, then yes, there is a benefit from LIV.
Now, with the rivalry between LIV and the PGA Tour, what impact do you see this having on player decisions, sponsorship deals, and the overall structure of professional golf moving forward?
Oof.
Kind of a loaded question there, I know.
Loaded question, and one that I wish would be resolved yesterday. At least again, I'm one man. I have an opinion, and I live in the gray zone, as I call it. But I for one, I'm tired of listening about the money. On the tour side, LIV, it kind of gets brushed under the rug a little bit now, just because not that many people follow it. But I'm tired about hearing about the massive amounts of money they're playing for. I'm tired of the signature events. I don't think they are doing the ecosystem any favors by having 60 limited field events for $20 million purses, $25 million purses. That's LIV without a shotgun start and 54 holes. The equipment sponsors, the clothing sponsors, the difficult position they were put into when their players signed with LIV. You see, a lot of guys were forced to become free agents, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing. But several long-term relationships because of that decision. Why would an equipment manufacturer, go, and cut them off? That's obviously another discussion that could take another hour. But going forward, I'd love to see how real, people can come to the table and come up with a way that benefits the game, not benefits one tour or the other organization or whatever they're called. That benefits the game. That's why the majors are so valuable now, because you do. If people could get their world rankings, you see the best players in the world playing 4 times a year. That's why, if people would put differences aside, the Ryder Cups, are incredibly valuable. The Olympics, is incredibly valuable because you see, even though those are kind of weird fields, how they come together, but the best players in the world have an opportunity to compete as they should, and that's what I would love to see. Eventually come together.
I'm going to piggyback off of something that you did say with the ecosystem of the PGA Tour, for instance, with the Signature Series events, because you look at some of these players that have been either out there for a long period of time or those that are just trying to break in to the PGA Tour's system and are full-time members and so forth, but they don't get to play in enough meaningful events. So I look at somebody like Kevin Streelman, for instance, who wasn't able to play the Travelers this year, even though he's a past champion, because it was a signature series event. Now, all of a sudden, because we would always get those guys that, one tournament that they just break through at, and all of a sudden they have a big win that kind of projects them forward and keeps them on tour and so forth. You haven't really been able to see that per se because of these signature series events. So I do want to kind of re-ask again to you, is this a good thing for the PGA Tour? I know you mentioned that you don't like the signature series events, but the PGA Tour as a whole, is it a positive that it's shrinking down to just the big names, so to speak, that people are able to get a little bit more attached to? And this is a tough question because it kind of comes down to, do you see it as a positive that the PGA Tour is technically shrinking?
I don't see it as a positive. I mean, yeah, I feel for the non-signature events. The sponsors that are still putting up multi-million-dollar sponsorship fees, and because they're not a signature event, they're not getting top players to come to them. And so for your $20 million investment or $35 million investment to be a title sponsor, you're not getting that draw, if you will. The players that are playing in those, I mean, God, don't we all wish we were that good? So I mean, it's a shame that they're being discounted because they're not part of this elite group. But no, I loved watching PGA Tour events, when sure you had 5 or 6 of the top players on the leaderboard, but you also had 3 or 4 guys. You're going, who the hell are they? And next thing you know, they win or take a second, and the next year they're the studs. They're the ones that have come out of quote unquote nowhere. Where do how do the Scotty Schefflers of the world get an opportunity to get into that circuit if they can't get enough points to through non-signature events?
I'm so glad that you said somebody like Scotty Scheffler, because he didn't break through right away, right? So he was somebody that was kind of around, and then finally had his big breakthrough. And then just all of a sudden the floodgates open and he started winning a lot. And then obviously we've seen over the past couple of years what Scotty Scheffler has become, but that wasn't him in the early days. He needed some time. And I even go back to, like Major League Baseball. I'm a huge Yankees fan. And you look at somebody like Nestor Cortez, who as a starting pitcher for the New York Yankees, it took him a really long time in the minor leagues and so forth before he really found who he was. Sometimes it takes 10, 15 years. Sometimes golfers don't reach their kind of peak of their golf game until they're early to mid 30s. So it's like, man, what are we doing to help develop these players? And I know there's the Korn Ferry Tour, but the Korn Ferry Tour just doesn't have that same aspect to it that the PGA Tour does. They don't play as good of golf courses or as long of golf courses, and it becomes often times where you just have to shoot an extremely low number on the Korn Ferry Tour in order to become something, and that's not what ends up winning a lot of these major championships. It's not often the guys that can just go lights out and make 30 birdies in a tournament. It's guys that can grind, and it's not necessarily the best putter in the world that is able to win these golf tournaments. So it's interesting from that standpoint. And I still kind of question around having the best players in the world competing at the same tournaments versus having what the PGA Tour always was, which is a great platform, and you have those breakthrough stories. And I absolutely love that. I mean, one of the things that we are spoiled with right now is that we still do have a couple young guys that have been able to break through, like a Nick Dunlap, like a Ludwig Oberg. And I know the tour is trying to do some of those things to kind of propel the top 1% in collegiate golf, for instance, to give them those opportunities without having to go to Q school. And so there's some aspects that they're adding back. I just don't see long term how this is going to benefit the tour as a whole and allow some of these guys to kind of work their way up to a point to where they start to be really what they could be in the game of golf. So I'm with you around that entirely. Now, I do want to move a little bit into the industry impacts and the future predictions that you have around the game of golf and how this is impacting the industry. So given everything happening between LIV Golf and the PGA Tour, where do you see, as a visionary, heading over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh boy. Oof.
And the industry specifically, I should say.
What was that?
The industry, so the golf industry specifically.
Well, the golf industry, you're going to see, and it's coming up. I mean, there's a crossroads here, right? We're going to limit ball flight, right?
That's true.
Okay. But unless they limit the driver, they're just the equipment guys are going to catch up.
Yeah,
and they always have. You watch the telecast, and guys are hitting 8 irons 210 yards.
So true.
Okay, what is that? What does that mean? Well, it means they got their equipment dialed in. They've got unbelievable conditions, right? I mean, they're playing balls that don't curve anymore. It's pretty tough to really hit a snap hook at that level. But their 8 iron loft setup may be the same as my 5 iron. I don't know, right? So they say, oh yeah, he's hitting an 8 iron 200 yards. You go out to the driving range, you go, well, why can't I hit an 8 iron 200 yards? I don't know. But I digress there. So where's the industry going? I think it's I think the rollback of the ball is going to be something to watch. The equipment manufacturers, the ball manufacturers, obviously are not too excited about that.
Oh, it's got to be killing Titleist. I mean, they've got their stranglehold over the golf ball side of golf, and they've got to rework all their golf balls. I mean, that's the main part of Titleist's business, if you ask me. So I'm curious what you think in regards to how damaging that could be to a manufacturer like Titleist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I believe they've got engineers that are smart enough to know. I mean, they've already got the ball figured out. Yeah. When they talk about dialing the ball back, this is not new news. This discussion's been going on for a long time. So that they've been planning, if you will, worst case scenario, we're going to have to dial the ball back. What is our ball going to look like? Titleist will still be the number one ball. Callaway and TaylorMade will still be working their way there. Srixon, Bridgestone will still be playing in the same sandbox as everybody. Everybody gets dialed back. Yes.
Do you think it favors anybody though?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, a lot of it comes down to marketing anyway.
Sure.
Right. If you're a Titleist guy and you're still going to play a Titleist ball, and the free agents, they're going to look at, either what performs best for them or maybe what the bonus schedule is as they place well. Who's going to pay them the most money for playing their product, even though they're not a quote unquote top endorser. It hurts the little guys that have been working so hard and spending so much money to build a better product to compete with the Titleists of the world. Those are the guys I think that are getting punched in the teeth a little bit. The average player, I've been out there long enough with launch monitors before launch monitors even worked. And everybody thinks I hit at 285. You put a launch monitor down. I mean, I've got a great story. We put an academy at a Nicklaus Academy at Pronghorn, and we hadn't even dialed everything in yet. We had a launch monitor. Everything was starting to work, and you had members, really good members that came down, and they're watching us going, "What is that? Hey, can we hit some shots?" And they get in there, and next thing you know, we're having cocktails delivered down from the clubhouse. But the boys are having a contest, how far they can hit their driver, and they were really disheartened to find out that what they thought was 290 in reality was 245. And
I love that.
You go out to the range or you go out to the golf course, every day, and people's perception of how far they hit the ball is not reality. And that's why, the advancements of launch monitors and making, if you will, consumer launch monitors available that give people a clue as to how short they are. If the average player loses 5 yards, that's not the end of the world, Joe.
It's so true. And I just have to piggyback off of that because I've had my experience as a vice president of sales and marketing for a golf technology company. And man, it just resonates when people would come into the golf simulator, especially when golf simulators were trying to break the mold of being just a rich man's toy to all of a sudden being like, no, this is a serious tool that you can use in your home in order to practice and get better. Now we're to the point 10 years later to where, that has become the conversation piece versus, it's not accurate. This is a piece of junk, whatever. Like it's just a video game for rich guys. So that resonates with me so hard because we used to all the time go to the PGA show in Orlando and have the simulator set up and everything. And sure enough, you'd always get the guy that's like, oh, I hit my driver 300 yards. Then they get up there and they hit a 235 carry. It ends up rolling out to like 245. And they're like miffed. They're like, this isn't accurate at all. This thing's terrible. This thing doesn't know how far I hit my driver. And it's just like, you sit there and you're like, guy, you just got out of your car. Like you just walked up to the first golf simulator you saw. And not only are you not warmed up at all, but also you don't hit the ball that far. So that resonates with me so much so because there were just numerous conversations around that. So I'm really glad that you brought up that aspect to it. But yeah, I do wonder, like, do you think that with the golf ball rollback in particular over these next 5-10 years, that the right decision was made to include the amateurs in that, or should it have just been around the professional game?
I think it should have just been around the professional game. Are we all playing the same equipment? Is my tennis racket the same as Djokovic? No. Is my kid's bat, not that I have a kid that plays baseball, the same as Aaron Judge's bat? No. The pros have different equipment.
They do.
Why do we take this stance in this game that we all have to play the same equipment? I mean, no. I don't think it makes a difference. I think they should have left the ball for amateurs. Remember what you remember when hot drivers came out, right?
Oh yeah.
Callaway had a hot driver. You can't play this driver, you can't play that driver. And if you're in a foursome and Jim shows up and he's got that Callaway that's on the forbidden list, got to watch out for Jim. He's a cheater. Holy shit! What did he do? Hit it 3 yards further right? I mean, no. I think that let the amateurs play. Let them again. it's the experience. My whole thing, and I wrote a story for a publication in South Africa, an industry publication, and I'll release it here in the States. But I wrote an article about, I went to a municipal facility in California on a site visit as a consultant. And yeah, it was an 18-hole par 3, been around since the 60s, if not the 50s, 1960s, 9-hole putt course. Give them credit, a really pretty good driving range. And people were just having fun. Yeah, they'd show up, they'd pay a green fee, whatever it was. Some people carried their clubs in their hands. Yeah, some people had a big staff bag and a pull cart. Some people kept score, some didn't. You had couples, you had families, you had guys playing a money game for it, I'm sure. They were just having fun. And all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, I keep talking about this and that. Well, you're talking about being around the best golfers, the best clubs, the best resorts, the best academies you can find. And I walked out of there going, shit, excuse me. Yeah.
Oh, you're fine. This is an unfiltered golf podcast, Ted. You can swear all you want.
Okay, now you open the floodgates. But I walked away going, people are just having fun. And if the industry can get out of their own way, put their egos aside, and realize that to sustain the game, not grow the game, sustain the game, we have to give people an opportunity to just go out and have fun. There's nothing wrong with standing there at the driving range for an hour and just hitting nothing but slices, and bringing the fence into play 90% of the time. They're having fun. If they get lucky and hit a straight one that went 220, that's the one shot. Again, what's the one shot that'll bring you back?
Yeah.
That's why I always tell golf courses, if you want to do it right, make sure your number one tee ground is as pristine as you can possibly get it, and your 9th or 18th green is perfect. That's what people remember. People remember that green as they walked off. If it's a piece of crap, they're going to go, the golf course is a dog track. If you walk off and if you tee off and there's no grass, there's nothing on your first hole, your perception is this is not going to be a good day.
Gosh, that's such a really good piece of advice to anybody working on golf courses out there, to make sure. And I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right, because it sets your entire perception up for the rest of the round from the first tee box. And then the 18th green, you're walking off, and that's going to be your last perception of what just took place. That's the last thing you're going to remember, I should say. So that's huge advice for anybody listening that's in the golf course business, even as a greenskeeper and so forth, that, make sure that those are tidied up. Now, you've worked so much internationally that I do want to ask you one other question around it, which, do you see the global expansion of golf continuing, or do you see that kind of constricting, or how it might change in the sport of golf?
I think it's either country or region dependent.
Okay.
And in the mature markets, UK, Scotland, Ireland, Spain, to a certain extent, they're mature. I think the golf industry, like it is or can be in the States, could be challenged. But when you go to India, you go to South America, you go to China, Southeast Asia, the golf boom is real.
Okay.
It is real. It's up to, in the case of China, it's up to the government to allow golf to prosper. South Korea, you can't, in Japan, you can't get more mature than those markets are. Yet the game continues to be incredibly sought after, by adults. It's a game of prestige, and certainly parents wanting their kids that opportunity to excel at the game of golf as an opportunity, if you will, to come and play golf in the States, get a scholarship. Throughout Asia, their goal is to go to Stanford. Stanford's only got so many spots available, and you have to have good grades and you have to be a good player. And in Asia, at least in most cases, education comes first, sports come second. And so they've got the grades. Now, as an academy or as a coach, your responsibility is to get them to be that good of a player that they can be. They can come to ASU here in Arizona. They can go to Stanford. They can go to Cal.
Do you think the Stanford side of it is driven because of Tiger? I know Tiger has driven a lot of the Asian market, but is that one of the significant reasons behind, the goal of getting to Stanford?
No, Stanford is such a brand. If you go back to brands, Stanford is a brand. You travel around, and I'm not a Buckeye fan, but you travel around and you see Ohio State Buckeye gear freaking everywhere. Same thing, Yankees. It's a brand.
Yeah, true.
So I think Stanford is a brand. Certainly, Tiger did not hurt, and the Tiger effect is still alive and well, in parts of Asia, because that's all they saw. Jack and Arnie and Gary, they were no longer part of the equation when the golf explosion hit in their markets.
Interesting. Now, I do want to spend a little bit of time around your project highlights and personal insights, because the audience, we got a lot of people that are looking to break into the golf industry in particular. And one of the things that I want to ask is, you've been involved in a lot of groundbreaking projects over the years. Can you share a few that have stood out, and ultimately, what did you learn from them?
I look at, and I'm at fault here, right? We developed successfully, had it patented, brought it to market. We were at the PGA show. We did the whole thing. We invented the first handheld statistical computer for golf. It's called the Stat Tracker 2. The reason it was number 2 is Stat Tracker 1 looked like a Kleenex box. That's what the engineer came up with. And we turned it into a product that is the size of an iPhone. And you were able to track 4 players at one time, and 14 valuable stats. Did all the calculations. You know exactly what your fairways hit, your GIRs, your up and downs. We downloaded it into your Windows Vista, maybe. Stuff that doesn't even exist. But was it commercially successful? No, because it was too hard to convince the market the value of tracking your stats.
Interesting.
We tried to spin it as a betting game because we used it to bet. We would bet on our stats, and we'd sit at the Jeremy Ranch Golf and Country Club in Park City, Utah, and we'd download our stats and go, okay, you owe me $5. I beat you in GIRs. Well, I got that $5 back because I beat you in putts. We tried different ways of marketing the product. It was ahead of its time because now every phone has a stat program built into it. There's value in that. So, you have to know, it's the greatest idea in the world, but you have to know if is the market ready for you, and do you have the staying power to get that market acceptance? Do you have enough money? Do you have enough conviction? Do you have the right marketing message, the right platforms to make the product successful? So, I always talk to people that want to come into the golf market, and I call golf sexy. It's a sexy sport to get into. you know who your audience is, right? It's a finite group, even though it's millions and millions and millions of people. Yeah, but beyond being sexy, you have to. I always, my marketing background says, okay, is it a product that's marketable? Now let's develop it. Can we develop it to the right price point, to the right features and benefits? It doesn't do us any good to have the best golf club in the world if it's $3,000. So you have to design your company, design your product, service, technology, whatever it is. What is the end product here, the end market, and can you be successful in that place? If you can make it work financially, great. If you've got the wherewithal to keep coming back to that PGA merchandise show, as painful as it is, and you know it very well.
That I do.
Can you have the right sales team out there? Can you do all the things that will make a startup product a success? Golf is a great one to start with, but I always say look down the road, because if you're developing it for golf, it may have the same application in baseball. And baseball is infinitely a much bigger participation sport in the States than golf. If you think about youth baseball, youth softball, the NCAA level, if it works for baseball, it doesn't work for cricket. Now you can take your product to India, where cricket is, cricket beats everything. Is it something that can be developed or modified for tennis or pickleball, for heaven's sake? So look outside of the golf market as you're developing it. What else can you do with it? Prove it in golf, but always have an eye to where there's a much bigger ocean out there than the golf market.
You pretty much, I had a couple questions around that, and you nailed it across the entire part of that segment. So I'm going to move into our final segment, which is our rapid fire Q&A. And first question that I have for you as you get onto the hot seat is, what's your favorite golf course that you've ever worked on or visited?
I'm biased, even though this is not a Nicklaus golf course, but Finca Cortesine in Marbella, Spain.
Oh, wow.
Your views are looking over the Mediterranean. I love mountain courses. Growing up in Utah, specifically living in Park City for 28 years, I love elevation changes. I love that challenge of the game, side hill lies, uphill, downhills. And I had an academy there, but I mean, it's just a fabulous golf course with views to die for. So Finca Cortesine in Spain.
Beautiful. Now, next question. What do you think is the biggest game changer in golf technology today?
I think it's ball tracking. Which is broad, right? I could say launch monitors, I could say simulators, I could say driving range tech. I think it's ball tracking, because when simulators, indoor golf now is credible. The stuff is good. I mean, the technology is good, whether you incorporate a TrackMan or a flight scope, or use full swing or whomever it may be. I mean, the technology is good. You get good data back. If you are at a driving range, whether it's Top Trace or TrackMan in range, you're getting good data. Seeing ball flight, is fun. And I think it's more engaging to the customer when they learn to appreciate it. I'm going to go off here a little bit, but you work with driving ranges and they want to bring in technology, but they still want to have a certain number of bays, buckets. Well, once you give people an opportunity to see what their ball flight is, what their distances are, how right and left they are, and they can't track that with their eyes. Now all of a sudden it's engaging. That guy that used to hit a small bucket of balls is more than happy to pay for an hour of good data at a driving range and possibly maybe have a beer or a sandwich or a Diet Coke or whatever. So to me, it's ball tracking. You see it on the TV telecast. Why not see it when you hit the ball?
I love that, and I couldn't agree more. Now, last question here in the rapid fire Q&A. Who's your dream foursome, living or deceased?
Oh, it's got. I mean, it's easy for me. For me, it's easy. I'm still alive, so I'm included. Jack, to play around to golf with Jack. And I'm selfish. I'm going to have my two sons,
I love that.
Dustin and Ryan. I mean, father-son golf, I think, is one of the greatest experiences in life. And to maybe go play around in golf with Jack and my boys, game over.
Love that answer. I love that aspect of the father-son, and then adding Jack into the mix as well. So clearly he didn't get that mad at you too often because you want to still play golf with him, which is nice. Now,
yep. Still want to go play golf with them. Absolutely.
It would have said a lot if Jack wasn't in your dream foursome. But that being said, as we conclude this episode with Ted Simons, this was a fantastic, very insightful. I think the audience really is going to take away a lot from this conversation, not only around LIV Golf, the international aspects, the business aspects that you brought up as well. I think your insights were unique and different than what we've had on the show previously because you have that international experience. And certainly I do want to thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure having you on the show to provide us with all of those insights. Now, to our listeners, definitely make sure to check out Synergy Group Consulting if you're looking for top tier consulting in sports and development. Ted, where can somebody go to find more information about Synergy Group Consulting or your personal side of it as well?
I'm not the social media king, so my website, which is synergygroupconsulting.net. That's home base, and then my idea of social media is LinkedIn, and you will find me on LinkedIn, and you will see me. You'll find me there quite a bit. But no, I'm not. I know I have an Instagram, and I think last I checked, I have 5 friends on Facebook. So I'm not there. So there you go.
You're not building a social media empire, that's for sure, Ted. Well, once again, thank you for coming on to the Pull Hook Golf Podcast. And once again, thank you, Ted, for being a part of this show with us here today. And stay tuned to next week for the next episode. See you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Matt.